Hi, welcome to Flirting with the Fish once again. Today, I have Dadi Pudumjee on our podcast. If you've been slightly interested in puppetry or if you've been looking at the Ishara Puppet Festival, you would know him. To me, personally, he's very, very iconic. He's absolutely a legend. And it's always been my question that what drives him? So, as you know, Flirting with the Fish is about people who are crazy about their fishes, who are chasing their fishes. And to me, Dadi has been chasing puppetry. But my question has been why? There doesn't seem to be any support, there doesn't seem to be any structure available for puppetry around. It's always a few of us who are sitting in audiences like that. So allow me to welcome Dadi. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. Thank you for inviting me.
How was your song that you did for Heather?
Haider.
Yeah. How did that come about?
That happened very interesting. Vishal Bharadwaj, he wanted to use folk style puppets. So he came and saw our work and he saw all the different techniques that we have used. So he liked it and he said this, I'm looking for someone to do choreography, but something totally different. I do not want the same Bollywood thing. That's what his idea was. And we had worked with Sudesh Adana, a tall a gymnast who became a dancer in Delhi long ago. And we had done a production called Dre, D-R-E. In Pashto, Dre was 3.
Okay.
And Sudesh lives in Norway and studied dance through a university and whatever, physical theatre. And he came with this project, 3 characters from the Mahabharata.
Okay.
So one was Gandhari, the other one was Krishna, who the good war, could stop the war, but said, no, this is the right thing, you have to do this. And one person who were the lost souls of the good and the bad, Pandavas and the others, all.
Yeah.
So these 3 characters with very, very strong sound, not even music, and very strong light, because the way he worked, he got this. So Aditi Mangaldas was the Gandhari. Sudesh, with his physical movements, was the lost souls. And this large puppet was the figure of Krishna, not looking Krishna, but gold and just the blue costume. And there was this whole thing. Now, whether you knew the story or not, it was very strong. So I told Vishal that, look, there is this person, see what his work is. And Vishal said, yes, I want him. So he came and did the choreography. It won the National Award for Choreography. Sudesh won for that song.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Vishal Bharadwaj was invited to direct an opera on an Indian Ramanujan's Kannadiga story of the flowering tree. So it's a very modern opera with sound, and that was invited to Theatre du Châtelet in Paris to direct. So then he came back to the idea of using puppets, and he got Sudesh to do the choreography. So that's how things work. And one thing led to another. I remember, again, presenting. There was the archaeological Marthan temple, and I remember putting a cell sheet on it and then drawing these figures. And that was how I presented it to Sudesh and to Vishal, that he said, we need something around. There's no stage, it's just a platform. So something is needed. So these figures so that's how it all started.
And what about Vikram Betal that you took to another level altogether?
Vikram Betal's story was actually transposition.
Yeah.
We read it as the transposed heads from Thomas Mann's story.
Okay.
Thomas Mann, 100 years ago, and Schiller took this story to Thomas Mann from originally Vetal Panchvinasati. It's called Vikram Betal's Kathasarit Sagar. There was one story after another story. So that was our second production in Ishara. And we were performance puppets, and the inner voice were dancers.
Okay.
There was again no text. We used some Rumi poems, music. Soundata was a girl who composed the music for us. And Rashna Emahasli Gandhi, so she was the base for us in that story.
Okay.
It's about the brain and the Brone. There is 2 friends. One is a farmer and one is a priest.
Okay.
So the priest is the one with everything with the brain.
Okay.
He stopped from doing this because his mind says no. The physical farmer has no inhibitions, and they both fall in love with the same girl. So the priest loses his Kamdev shoots the other, and priest loses his head. So the other guy said, I respected you because you said you always had control over your emotions. He said, I can't help it. This is it. But the girl looks like the farmer. She marries the priest, but she says, I married because I was married. I couldn't help it, but I loved that man. And priest, then I remember his brain, he gets ego, jealous, and he cuts his head off for the Akali. So the friend comes and says, this is because of me it's happened. So he cuts his head off. She comes in and she says, I'm also going to die. And the goddess stops her. She said, why didn't you decide in the story, our version from the Thomas Mann story, why didn't you decide? That's where the Betal thing happens. Who is the husband? Why didn't you decide who you wanted to get married to? She said, I didn't have a choice, but he's my husband, but he's my lover. So she said, no, you decide who you want to. So she says, can I put the heads back and they will come alive? She says, of course, goddess says. So the wrong head goes on the wrong body. They come alive. Now the girl asks the goddess again, who is my husband? She says, now you did this, now you decide. So until Maya, all these heads, until you go through life, you will never be able to answer this question. And our thing was, Rachna's thing was, when the body and the mind are in tandem, then you know you're alive. So recently in the Meta Festival, Neelam Mansing's play came, Ayavadhan. She interpreted it as well. So we did it mostly with dance. Music and the puppets, and again, like Heer Ke Baris, the puppets are the archetypes and the inner voice are the dancers. So when she gets married, the dancer and the puppet go. Puppet is the priest and the dancer is the girl. But she's looking at the other guy. So afterwards she gets up and moves, and there's a whole dance sequence between the two male and female dancers. Then it comes into the puppet. So again, playing with real and fantasy.
Like I said, it's absolutely been my chase and my hope to someday sit with you and ask you this question, that why have you been driving puppetry like all your life when it just seems so difficult?
Well, it's I grew up and school, college was in Pune. And puppetry started as a hobby, string puppets, toy puppets, a company called Pelham Puppets from the UK. Some 2 gifts came and a cousin who was traveling. That's where the interest started. And there were a few books all the time which are not easily available now in bookshops. Mani's was a very, very famous bookshop in Pune. People used to travel to Pune to go to that bookshop. And now you have all sorts of many new sort of curated bookshops. But there were books there, a few of them I still have in my collection, and that's where it started as a hobby in home. And in school, the Bishop's school that I went to encouraged art and performances. Every few months they would do a scratch concert. Anybody could get up on stage and do something. So they string puppets with a band. And then through college was making string puppets that time, for social, collection of funds, Women's Council, this, that. So it went on like that. And in 71, NID, National Institute of Design, where your father taught me, it was new. And the first batch was 1970. I was the second batch, 71. And I joined NID, and there the whole world opened up. NID foundation course, and in the evenings I was involved with Darpana Academy of Performing Arts, Mrinalini Sarabhai, Malika now, and they had a puppet section, late Mayor Contractor. So you would have heard her son's name, who just now passed away, now Rose Contractor, who was a cinematographer. So she had a puppet section course, and that's where it became slowly more professional. I was introduced to more Indian traditional styles, things like that. one thing led to another, eventually to leaving NID in the end, and ISRO, the puppet studio there, a scholarship in Stockholm by UNIMA, the World Puppet Body. And then, and in 1980, I came to Delhi with Sri Ram Center for Art and Culture. Again, the connection with Ahmedabad, Panna Bharatram, who's passed away. She was a Lalbai. And there was some connection to puppetry from her in Ahmedabad. And she had spoken to Mervyn or whatever, and I was again going to East Germany that time and Sweden, 79, to do a project. And she, on the last evening, said, we want to set up a puppet repertory company in Delhi at the center. So will you come? And I said, I've signed a contract for 1 year to be away. But in the end, 1980, I jumped into water. In June, I arrived in Delhi and we started possibly India's first modern puppet repertory company. There were 5 or 6 of us who were together working, both traditional Rajasthani artists, Puran Bhatt, Jagdish Bhatt, Baroda Fine Arts students, 1 or 2, Sushma Pandit, Pranjala Gill. Vinod Dua was also part of our first group. He wrote our first script. And we used to perform there every Saturday evening and Sunday morning during the season in the basement theatre. So I was with them for about 5 years and then started Ishara after that.
And when did you start having an outside of in India influence on your work?
I would say that luckily, because of NID and the grounding there in Darpana, then the 2 years I was a guest student in Stockholm, Mikael Meschke as he's called. He had started an experimental school for puppet theatre where puppetry, not just for kids, but puppets, actors, music, dance, which has influenced my work now. And not only for kids, but even for adults, the shows. So that is where I think the influence comes. But one of the major influences at that time was this 3 people working a puppet, the Bunraku sort of style, technique, which comes from Japan. And Meschke was doing his Antigone, Sophocles' Antigone, in that style of puppets, 3 people, visual. And the first time he managed to get the Bunraku Puppet Theatre from Osaka, which is a very close society, to come to travel outside Japan. They came to perform in Sweden. And one of the young masters, who's now a living treasure in Yoshida, Senosuke Yoshida, he stayed back to teach us this technique of how you make 3 people work one figure. And that influence is very strong with me. So I think I got both, I would say, from East, West. And then working at Sri Ram Center, the mix of Rajasthan, urban so-called theatre, art students, things like that. So one thing led to another. But I think when you ask me the basic influence in my work of using color, form, texture, material, workshop is come from the design school in Ahmedabad. That's for sure.
So what has been your Dadi's process of puppetry? Because you have a very distinct style.
My distinct style has come about telling stories visually, using puppets as a means, not an ends in itself, which came from Sweden. And the creative part from Darpana and Mayor Contractor and NID, but always experimenting, but now it's no longer an experiment. It's become a style where we always integrate or synergize actors, dancers, masks, puppets, objects, you know. So in the last 1 or 2 productions of Rumi, or even before that, when land becomes water, there was a mix of all these things, including video projection, things like that, and playing with scale. Because that suddenly everybody says, and you see a tall puppet or a big puppet, it's Ishara. I said, no, now there are many people doing that. But I think we started 2008 during the Commonwealth Youth Games and in Pune. And the event company wanted these 10 large 12, 13, 14-foot puppets for a parade. And that's where it started. So we play with scale from maybe a foot high to large, and we use the whole stage, not a small puppet stage.
Did you also once make this huge dragon
Yes, there was a dragon and there was a huge walkabout sphinx. Big one, 3 people working it, yellow. That happened with a collaboration between, that was even before these big giant puppets, Asia Link from Australia. We were one of the hosts for residencies. So puppeteers would come once in a while to work with us for 1 or 2 months. And Brian Waltian was from Perth, and he used to make large figures for Olympic Games and things like that. So he had come and worked with our group at Ishara to make this big thing, which was Walkabout, this big,
It was magical.
Yeah, that was.
I remember my daughter was like, I think 3, and she chose to not get up. I mean it, like the show ended and she just stood there. And she just like, I said, okay, let's go, it's time. And she said, no, it's coming back. And she was in this whole thing that the process, it just didn't end. It didn't close for her.
Achha.
So she sat there and she said, nahi, abhi wo wapas se start karenge. And just didn't want. And it was truly like, we never experienced something at that scale.
Well, we've also had many people come up in Ishara Festival who were parents now, but who saw as kids shows at the Sri Ram Center between 1980 and 86. Now they've been coming, so they've been an audience that has grown, and some shows are good, some shows maybe not very good, but it's carried on.
So every time you think of a concept and you have many choices of the different art forms that you want to choose from, right? How do you begin that process?
That sort of, I think, comes again going back to 1970s NID. The basic also is that the materials at hand that you have and the people who can use or work this sort of puppet. So it always comes back to the technique of that style, whether it's handheld or whether it's abstract or whether one performance was just done with umbrellas and sticks. So every time there is it's a bit of a problem, but to think that, okay, we don't know now, we finished this and it's like, we've done something. Now we don't know what the next thing is. Okay, we're doing some workshops, we've got performances, but we have to start thinking that what is the new production that we will work on. And what is valid in today's time. Let's face it, that the audiences in Delhi that we are performing are mostly urban audiences, right? So the ones that come to Habitat Center are exposed to many different art forms, television, film. So what is it that interests them? Why do they come again and again, these same audiences, and builds up? Maybe who buys the tickets for the show? The parents buy the tickets. So is there something that is interesting, or is there something that they want to tell their children or bring to show them that is different from the mono sort of culture that you are seeing? I don't know. So there is some value to it that a live performance has. Even our same performances, if we record and do a stage performance in a film, it's very different. It's more as a documentation or show, but you have to make puppets for the medium. For film or television is very different from a live thing. The materials change, everything changes. So it's something that draws people. Puppetry, I don't know. This is something that when you're in it, you're so involved that you don't think about it.
Yeah, like I remember a couple of times at Ishara, especially the French puppetry, Spanish puppetry, it's always been a very good use of technique.
Yes.
It's not just been the story, but what amused me and my daughter, different age groups, was this, how did they do it? It doesn't sound very normal, like, okay, somebody's flapping this and a narrative is going on. But you can't ignore it that, oh, how did this even happen?
Yes.
That's very prominently there, the technique. But we can't figure out what it is. And
that is the draw that this Professor Yurkowski speaks about, the power of the puppet. It is an object that you know is an object, is a non-living thing, but it suddenly starts having a life of its own. Now, whether it's very technical with eyes moving, whether you're seeing, for instance, in that half an hour, sometimes you're watching the puppeteer move the puppet as well.
Yeah.
So that distance between the human being and the figure comes alive. Again, I repeat this many times, a German puppeteer, Albrecht Roser, who said that it's not a one-sided thing, puppetry. It's like a vessel, and in those 5 minutes, the puppeteer as well as the audience put their emotion, only then it comes alive. Otherwise, you're just shaking the figure, Why are you using puppetry? If the actor can do that better, we get many commissions, help, this, that, and we have to see how to use the medium, because otherwise it's you're giving a lecture in miniature by human beings. So that's where it comes in, the manipulation, music, theater, all that things comes in. And sometimes in puppetry, less is more. Yeah.
When you're doing this juxtaposition between the real and the puppet, and when you're creating or thinking about it, are there many people involved in that process, or it's mostly like one person detailing it out?
I start with my idea and then we put it together. Now in Rumi, there were the two boys who did that one sequence of dance.
Yes.
We were using stock music. With Sandeep Pillai said, no, then you all get stuck with this. I said, yes, but we don't have the music. So then he then took the timing and the beats and composed his own music. So when these two were doing this piece, Shamshul was very good at dance, and he had studied also, he led the group with Astad Debu. So he has a certain style of very slow movement. So I said, Shamshul, there is this two people, I don't know what will come out of it, but you mirror each other, and then one falls, and that one picks that person up, and that person starts moving, then this one falls, and so it's an interaction. So I just played a piece of music, and he and that boy Narayan Sharma choreographed it. Then came Rishikesh Parwar from Pune, who's a dancer, but he does a lot of new movement dance. So he was in town, and I said, Rishi, can you help us with this? So he saw it, and he put in some more things into it. He did exercises and all. We went straight to the movement. So it developed that way. Now it's got fixed. So then when the music happened, the music also lifted it, because the same it was the same counts, but the sound is different.
Yeah.
In the chants, in the first part, that is where when we were starting, now Rumi comes from Balkh, Afghanistan, Iran, that area, and we said we don't want to stick to one area, we want to make it universal. So I was directing, and I used chants from an Iranian group, and Sitaish is the piece, and it's a fantastic piece of music. So I liked it, and we started. So when Sandeep came in, I said, Sandeep, now this is what we are doing. But he said, we should make it open. And so he uses chants from the Ek Omkar, then he goes to Lord's Prayer, Azan, the Buddhist chants, and he mixes that together. And that's quite beautiful. So if you have an idea and you present it, and other people also put in, that has to happen.
Develops over.
In a large production, that has to happen.
When experience comes in, do we experiment less?
Yes and no, because this is the question. As I said, how much time you have to make something. And if you have to make it it's commission, and you have to make it in a certain time period, and if you can adjust with the person who's commissioning and likes the work, the presentation, then you have to do it, and you will fall back on certain things. My Meshke, my teacher from Stockholm, he said every production that you start from zero. So it's fresh. You must think of new things, how you will do this, that. I said, how is it possible? Because you already have worked and you know some things will not work. He says, no, but you must start with a fresh page.
So it's possible.
It is possible. People must be doing it. But how? Because you hear your expenses, budgets, time frame, who you're trying to convince this works or doesn't work, all comes in.
All that comes in.
It's not easy.
what is it that you teach to young people today as a mentor?
It's
as a
very
coach?
interesting. The whole thing of color, form, art, show them certain things, if I've got the possibility of video, something to show them that, okay, here is this piece of music. When you listen to it, what comes first thing to your mind? The other workshop is objects. The 40 minutes when we do this work presentation, I take a black backpack and I put it on the table and I said, now, both for adults as well as children, I said, if you have to see this and if I have to give it character, who could it be? So this is the bag. I said, yeah, forget the bag and who uses the bag. You're seeing a black synthetic backpack.
Object.
So I have to give them I have to give them one thing, male or female, because then they start. So 90% will say male. Some will say female. Then again the NID jury. Why did you say this? No, because we feel like that. So I said, what made you think that this is? I have not put eyes, hair, anything on it. So then they go into the thing of material. It's looking strong. So I said, are you trying to say that the female thing is not strong, the person? No, that's not it. But you asked me what first thing comes into mind. So that's how we start. Then I said, if I have to animate this, old or young. So then they would say young or old. And then I said, physical. I'm holding the bag and I'll make it walk. Or I'll make it jump or something. That's how it is. Then I said, now I'll get 2 different bags of different material. And I would pick a bag which a color is different or pink or cloth, and I'd put it next to it. And then I said juxtaposition or a small bag, and immediately a story comes in your mind.
Yeah.
So that is when they said, yeah, what is juxtaposition? So I said, when you're seeing it together, now when I'm putting this one thing, you have a problem. Then I take a pair of shoes and there is a female shoe waiting and the male shoe comes and is there and the female shoe slaps him, falls. It's a 2-minute improvisation. I said, who are these 2 characters? So it's very interesting. School kids, teenagers, adults. The school kids would always say that the general group in school, 8-9 years, will say that no, Eve teasing or the friends. She was waiting and he came late. So I said, do they know each other? So she said, of course they know, because that's why she hit him. So then I said, see, I only put 2 steps. You are making the story. The kids, small kids, will say mother and child. And the adults will say husband and wife. So without words, without music, we're doing this little, and I've done it everywhere. And it's interesting, the same thing comes about and it breaks ice. And then after that, I go into puppets, glove puppet, but beginning was with objects. Or a piece of cloth, how would it move it and what is the thing, So this is what I find more. And this comes also from Mervyn Darpana, creative work, this, that, objects.
So, I mean, because you're saying so strongly about the influence of NID, take us through that. What was your time at NID? What was so magical or well done there?
I think any school or college that you go to, you will have some, influence and longing for.
Yeah.
And NID was fresh at that point of time. We were the second group, so we were 30 students. We were first group, we were only 60 people in this whole campus.
Wow.
And all our mentors and teachers were almost the same number. So it was a different world. Also, when you go out of your home environment and you stayed, and I didn't have hostels at that time. We were staying and paying guest things. So it's a certain thing that NID introduced you to, which I'm sure maybe it's still there, but times have changed. We didn't have any computers or anything then, but there was something that it introduced you to so many other media, and it was one institute, one building where you had textile, product design, graphics. There was no video, there was film. So all these were in one campus, so you could see what was happening. And there used to be those summer semesters. Dashrath Patel, all these people, where you would do people from different sections of NID came together to do workshops. So it was a special time. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, everybody talks about it in that capacity, which is very well done. But do you think today's education institutions are more open or they're not open?
Not necessarily. I think the NCRT long ago, creative drama and puppetry, NSD, TIE, we had to make logbook books. We wanted to have it as a curriculum. But when it came down to the hours in the school, it was just 1 hour, half an hour in a whole year. So I said, what? And then we said, who is going to teach it? How are you going to teach it? No, we'll have our workbooks. If you're wanting to do this, you make it as a marked thing that there is dance, that music. And if that can be valued, and when they go to the university and they will take that into account, then they will people will do it. Otherwise they won't. Why should they do it?
It just becomes a loose thing to do.
CCRT, Center for Cultural Resources and Training, again started long ago. Is Dwarka. They have a fabulous campus where it's a government thing where they call for 2 weeks teachers from government schools from all over India. They expose them to art, culture. They also do a puppetry thing. But their whole aim is to teach puppetry subjects through puppetry.
Okay.
They say that when I go back, how do I convince my principal that I need these materials? They say, "Aap free time mein karo, not during." Why should I do it in my free time? I want to go home. So the teachers say that. So it depends on the head. How they see the art. If they see it, they do it.
And what role does money play in your life? How much?
Thankfully, I had the support. So that is what. If this was not happening, something was there, savings from home, this, that, and the other. It's a middle class Parsi family. But when I look at young people which I've trained and they're living on this profession, hats off to them.
I mean, how do puppeteers make money in today's context?
It's difficult. For instance, doing performances and shows, you don't get that many. Okay, so you have to adapt to teaching workshops. A lot of workshops happen with schools, with teachers, things like that happen. It is a fad also. Okay, come and do a workshop or come and do this. I remember my first job when I left Sri Ram Center and I still was in Delhi was with Times of India. They had newspaper in education, a project, Savina Sehgal, all these people, where you were rung up, tomorrow you're going to this school and you're going to do this little 45 minutes, in one period, a little workshop thing, presentation. That's where this bag and shoe and all that came about. So it was different. So that sort of thing can happen. You have to market yourself. Today, that's main thing. And if they can do that properly and use digital media to do that, it works.
To run an event without sponsorship, how have you been even managing?
Well, that's a good question because we are not very good at marketing, I think. With that, what I say, we also thank the ones who come because they're the ones who make the festival run, the parents who buy the tickets. So besides that festival, also the schools which buy shows during the festival, and Chandigarh administration and Tagore Theatre Society for the last 7-8 years takes 4 or 5 shows. So all this contributes to the running of the festival. As you see, maybe we get a very good press. We don't have funds to do ads or things like that. So it's mostly online. And it has been at the same location for India Habitat Center for 21 years. So there is something that has grown. Also around that, through the year, Ishara, when there's some performances or a project or things like that. So there is some awareness to that. We've stayed in a place and it carries on. We were talking earlier and you also said sometimes the right time and the right place, some things happen.
Is the artist or the creator more responsible for the way society goes or to fit in their work into the society?
It is so difficult because when it comes to bread and butter, if there's no sponsorship, the artist is also
you throw all the fundas
provided
out of the window.
How conscious he is about this thing.
So Dadi, you have a legacy. You've obviously you've been in the game top of the game for years.
You saying that I should stop?
No way, no way, no way. There's no way you should stop at all. But what do you want to leave behind?
Oh, Baba. I don't want to be immortal. Many artists want to be, especially in dance and all. It's very, very, you carry on and on and on. As much as I can do, I will do. As much as I like what I'm doing. And the fun is, or the nice thing is to see the young people, a few who have worked with me or trained, as that they're managing on their own. That for me is the legacy. When someone comes up and says in the festival, I saw you as a kid in Shriram Center in the basement, and now I've got my kids, that for me is, it's special. So I think the affection that the audience shows us in the festival, which has grown, and it goes almost full, almost, I would say, some days, weekends is packed. So I think that is nice. And because of that, we get also goodwill. People are asking us, helping us. What help do you need? Habitat Center, Visual Arts Gallery. And I sent out a question thing for our promo with a photograph for 21 years. I went to many of the groups that have performed. I said, send us a message. So I said, you write what you want to. You want to be critical. All of them have said that we enjoyed coming, and the personal contact we made between audiences, puppeteers, and the production team, we always remember.
Wow.
They said that we kept these contacts with people we met. Some audiences have come up with us and we've kept that contact. The production team, people who are with us all the time, is very, very special. It's not a big festival. It's not with so many shows.
Yeah.
So they said that when you're coming to India, first you're worried. What is the audience? How many? Yeah. Some say only 150 audience. I said, then you can't come to India. The minimum here is 250. Chandigarh will be 600. How will we do this? What? I said, don't worry. And they say that the audience reaction is fabulous. When Chandigarh once, was it Bulgarian or Italian group, the house was full and there were lines of people outside. So they said, we can't have any more inside. So they said, don't worry. We don't want the money. We will perform again for them.
Wow.
So that is a nice thing that has happened.
What is it that you want to say about the impact of puppetry on your life as a young person? And
maybe that's the legacy that you talk about. Earlier, anything that came from abroad was acceptable.
Yeah.
And that is good. Also, it has spread to young people to take up the profession, which you were asking.
Yeah.
Many of the fancy schools, they only want a certain type of performance. Sanitized, pretty, politically correct. They will get upset when I say that there's something thoughtful or cerebral, then, we cannot sponsor it or not, or violence. So I wish that those people are more open to see, because your life is very varied. You step outside your door and you see what is going on. So this is something that if you keep your children away from it, you're not doing good.
100%.
You're not exposing them. You're only exposing them to a world which is pretty.
And it hits each of us even harder.
Yes,
to come out of that cocooned life one day and start experiencing, because we've never been exposed to it.
Yeah, that is there.
So thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your time. And really mean it. Thank you for all the detailings that you've shared with us. Really means a lot. कैसा लगा? Leading the most pioneer of modern puppetry in India, दादी पदमजी को सुन के. इशारा पपेट थिएटर के लीडर हैं, हमेशा इनकी स्टोरी टेलिंग को मैंने विटनेस किया है, एंड आई वाज ऑलवेज वंडरिंग कि ये एक ऐसा इंसान जिसके दिमाग में इतने कैरेक्टर्स, इतनी सारी दुनिया, इतनी सारी कहानियां घूमती रहती हैं नॉन स्टॉप, एक्चुअली उनके अगर दिमाग के अंदर जाएं तो कैसा होगा. सो ऐसा था. आई होप यू एंजॉयड इट एज मच एज आई डिड. And we must note a very important thing that he said about the school education, कि जो बच्चों को हम आर्ट, डिज़ाइन, विजुअल अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बारे में जितना टाइम नॉर्मल अमूमन तौर पे जो स्कूल्स में देते हैं, वो बहुत कम होता है. इट्स रियली नॉट इनफ. इमेजिन गिविंग 30 मिनट्स, 60 मिनट्स ओवर अ सब्जेक्ट, नॉट वर्थ इट. आप सोचो कि अगर मैथ्स को, फिजिक्स को, साइंस को अगर इतना टाइम दिया जाए तो क्या अचीव होगा. इट्स द सेम वे. सो एज अ पेरेंट, एज एन एजुकेटर, जितना भी हम कर रहे हैं उससे थोड़ा सा और करें. It will only help our children, guaranteed. And while you're at all these podcasts, do listen to 3 more podcasts. पक्का से सुनना. अंशुल रियाजी, वो एक बस्कर हैं, दिल्ली में रहते हैं. वो इसलिए बस्किंग करते हैं क्योंकि जब तक वो उनके मन में जो बात चल रही है वो एक गाने के रूप में, जब तक गा ना दे उनको चैन नहीं पड़ता है. लेकिन जब वो सड़क पे गाते हैं तो हजारों लोग खड़े होकर सुनते हैं हर बार. सो यू मस्ट लिसन टू हिम. एंड द अदर पर्सन इज मिस्टर ब्रह्मानंद, जो कि एक अवार्ड विनिंग फिल्म मेकर हैं. वो कभी भी कन्वेंशनल फिल्म्स और कन्वेंशनल टॉपिक्स पे बात नहीं करते जस्ट टू मेक हिज फिल्म पॉपुलर, बट ही मेक्स फिल्म्स फॉर इम्पैक्ट. सो आई होप यू एंजॉय लिसनिंग टू हिम टू. Also, coming up is Mr. Puran Bhatt, who is India's most famous string puppeteer from Rajasthan. He also works with Dadi Pudumjee, but he's a pioneer in himself. So that's coming up. Hope you enjoy all it all. Keep flirting with the fish.